Call the Kitty Hawk Town Council to order this Monday, March 5, in the year 2018 at Kitty Hawk Town Hall. It is now 6 p.m. And we're without a lawyer for the moment, but we sent somebody to fetch him. So we'll start the meeting, and we have a presentation, so we hope to have the lawyer by the time we get into the rest of it. Would you folks join us with a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Presentations. Police Chief, or Police Detective Jeff Gard, I just promoted you, didn't I? All right, but you got a lot of time in the service, and we do appreciate all of it. Joel?
Mayor and Council, as y'all well know, this is Jeff Gard. He started with us in February of 1998 after he completed basic law enforcement training. This is his first law enforcement job, and he is the only person at the police department is where they've started, and now they have 20 years of service. Most of us, including myself, had come from other agencies. He started as a police officer 1, 2, 3. Now he's detective, which we moved to that division in 2011. Jeff, we were checking, I was speaking with him, has over 3,000 hours of training, which is pretty astronomical. He has his advanced law enforcement certificate. He's a volunteer at the Manus Harbor Volunteer Fire Department. And Jeff, not only is he a detective, but he brings a great wealth of knowledge when it comes to crime scenes and talking to people. He can talk to anyone. And his investigative skills are such an asset to the department. He's in charge of our body camera program that we implemented, that I implemented several years ago. He's in charge of our in-car camera, the evidence room, he's the evidence room custodian. Bank alarm response program, where we educate the bank employees on what to do in case of a robbery. He does that annually. And he's also in charge of installing, we have intrusion alarms that we install in vacant rental homes in the winter to try to apprehend people if they break into the rental homes. We have a procedure set in place for those which I won't divulge. But Jeff's also, in attendance, his son, Blake, who's 16, and his parents. And Jeff also comes from a long line of public servants. His father's retired Master Chief in the Coast Guard, and he's recently retired from his second retirement with the state of North Carolina, and his mother retired from the county also. And Jeff, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and the town of Kitty Hawk was very good to me, that's why I stayed here as long as I have. So I hope to continue on about 8 or 9 more years.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
You do a good job. All right, next presentation is Robin Holton.
Good evening. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak to the council, to the mayor, and to the people of the town of Kitty Hawk. My name is Robin Holton. I am the Executive Director of Children at Play. We are a nonprofit children's museum located in Kitty Hawk. A little bit about myself. I'm a native of North Carolina, 20-year resident of Dare County, and I live in Kill Devil Hills. I'm a registered nurse with a master's degree in family nursing, and in my retirement decided to do something fun, and for 18 months I've been Executive Director of the museum. It's my first experience with a nonprofit, so it's been quite an experience too. If any of you know much about nonprofits, Dare County supports around 130 nonprofits now, And so there's a lot of competition for the volunteers and for the funds and donations. So I just want to tell you a little bit about what we do. Most of you recognize this building right there at Buccaneer Walk, Captain Frank's. The museum was established in 2009 as a nonprofit, 501c3, and has become an important local resource. Originally, it was on the east side of the bypass, and in 2012, the whole shop center was flooded and everything was lost, so they started fundraising from the ground up and moved to its current location, and since 2012. So a very successful nonprofit. We have 15 to 17,000 visitors every year, visitors as well as locals. You know, in the wintertime, if you have young grandchildren or young children, there's not a lot to do, and we offer a wonderful educational resource for children. We do charge admission, and we have members, and that's what we live on through the winter when we don't have a lot of visitors here. With our memberships, we continue to stay open and look forward to a busy season in spring. These next several slides describe and show pictures of our exhibits. I'm just going to quickly go through them so I don't take up your time. Please drop in to visit. We're open this time of year, Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 5. And in summer, we add Monday to that. We showcase the Outer Banks culture with a 20-foot Carolina Flare fishing boat inside the museum, built by a Wanchese boat builder. We have a lighthouse and lots of other activities to, again, showcase Outer Banks and what we're all about, which is really interesting for our visitors from out of state. One of the things I'm most proud of as a public health nurse for most of my life, when I first looked at this job, I thought, well, I'm not interested in entertaining tourists necessarily, but we do lots of community service. About half of our funds come from grants. And with our grants, we are able to donate free memberships to families. Right now, we have about 75, 80 families who are recipient of free memberships so that their family can come for the entire year. And this is either because they're low income or if they have a child with special needs, free membership. And again, that comes from grants or from donations. You know, grantors, PNC Foundation has been a great source of grants for several years now, but every year they keep cutting us and say, you need the community to support this program. So in order to continue giving free memberships, we also have programs that involve special needs adults from the Monarch Club coming in to work with preschool children to do art programs. To continue those programs, we need continuous funding. Last year, we put in a gem mine on our porch. So any of you that have grandchildren, this is a wonderful addition where kids can gem mine for fossils and shark teeth and exotic seashells to add to their collection of shells from North Carolina. Lots of fun. And if children don't want to come to the museum, which we cater to children from 1 year up to 10 years old. But if older children come, they can purchase the bags of rough and just do the gem mining. They feel like they don't want to stay in the museum or if your time is limited. So that's been a great addition and has helped us, again, to sustain ourselves. So again, we serve the local community. We try to be a big part of that. The Mommy and Me is a group, which is another nonprofit. They come to the museum regularly and help support us that way. Free field trips. This is another part of the last grant that I wrote through the PNC Grow Up Great Grant. We added free field trips for Head Start and NC Pre-K and special education classes, and that's for Currituck County and Dare County. And I've had close to 150 preschool classes, children come in their classes so far this year. Again, free field trips because we know that what we offer is very educational. With each of those field trips for the preschoolers, we do a science program, science demonstrations. They're a lot of fun for them. So we are definitely an educational resource. Every Thursday, except in the summer, we do Science Thursday, 4 o'clock. We have all kinds of guest speakers. Last week we had a horse from, one of the wild horses from Kerala that's corralled, came to the museum, and all the children got to go out and learn about the wild horses and how they survive. Sensory Santa and Bashful Bunny are programs for special needs children where we close the museum for only children with special needs and their families to come in. We are, and specifically, I'm asking for, any of you are interested, come and take a tour. We'd love to have you volunteer. We would love to have you get involved in some of our programs, and we will see what other kinds of resources you might can contribute. We ask that, again, for any kind of financial assistance, and I'd like to pass these around, so then I'll give those to you. It does cost us about $7,500 a month just to stay open, just to pay our payroll of our few part-time people and our rent. We hope to open some new exhibits, and donations can be earmarked especially for new exhibits or to sponsor and upgrade current exhibits, like such as our boat. Our boat, 20-foot Carolina Flare, needs to be painted, needs to be updated a little bit, and so you could make a donation to upgrade something specific like that. We're looking at in the future doing a wind turbine and something to do with the history of the Lost Colony in the museum as well. So we're looking again to showcase the history that we have here in the culture. Board members as well, anyone that has just an interest in children, education, we're looking for board members and volunteers. Never enough. So does anyone have any questions?
Anyone?
All right. I
Thank
believe
you.
that
Thanks
is-
for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. I won't be staying for the meeting, if you don't mind. I'll live in Philadelphia Hills and attend. Enough politics in that town, so I don't want to get involved in, should I just, I'll minimize it. I think I'll minimize, there we go. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have public comment. Lynn?
Yes, sir. Glenda Keel.
Hello. I'm here on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Dare County, and I'm here to present the 2018 Citizens Guide. Complimentary copies of the guide are given out annually to government and business offices throughout the county. And the League of Dare County has been doing this since 1988, and this year we have a new edition. As a pilot program, we've had it translated into Spanish, and we're providing 200 copies this year to agencies that tend to serve the Latino community. And if it is well received and we have a request for more, we'll try to do more next year. We'd like to acknowledge the county commission, municipalities, and local businesses that have contributed generously to help cover the costs of publishing the guide. We also want to acknowledge all the many employees who helped by providing information to update the guide. I'm going to read part of this because we do present this at each town council and to the Board of Commissioners and a few other venues, and in order to make sure we cover all the information similarly, we have some written guidelines. The guide is actually published under the auspices of the state League of Women Voters Citizen Education Foundation. It provides names, addresses, phone numbers, and email addresses for national, state, county, and municipal officials. In addition, the guide has information on recreation areas and services, other local attractions, and also voting information and emergency numbers. This year we did 7,100 copies in English, and they're distributed by League members from Duck to Hatteras Village to Roanoke Island, and of course mainland Dare also. They're available in libraries, post offices, the Baum and Fessenden centers, and then of course town and county offices. And it's also available on our website. The League's website is www.lwvdarenc.org. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government and influences public policy through education and advocacy. Publishing this guide is part of our continued commitment to provide pertinent information for our community's voters. Membership in the League of Women Voters is open to anyone of voting age, female or male, and new members are always welcome. Thank you for your support. I'm going to leave some of the guides with your clerk. Thank you. And hope you find the guide useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and they are useful. I've
Very much
used them a
so.
couple of times when the website for Adair County didn't give me what I wanted, so they do work. Thank you. All right, someone else?
Yes, sir. Spencer Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I know I'm not winning any popularity contest around here these days, after what I said last week, or the complaints that I've made about this process. I noticed there's a case before the Supreme Court of the United States right now about a fellow who went before the Riviera Beach Town Council, and they always complained about what they were doing. And one time he came and they got tired of what he was saying, so they just arrested him and handcuffed him. And now the case is all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States about whether or not they tread on his rights. Don't worry, officer, I'll go quietly when the mayor shuts me down. But I'm here because I'm concerned about what happened here last month with the rezoning of two properties on Putter Lane. As the mayor said, some people didn't do all their due diligence, and I hadn't done all mine then, but I think I have done it now. When this proposition was put before the planning board in December, of course, the planning board gave no notice, and there was almost nobody there. And the presentation by the representative of the applicant made a statement that related to a study that had been done. And he completely misrepresented what that study had concluded. I pointed that out, but nobody responded when I was here a month ago. In addition to that, I mean, we were not notified of it. We didn't know anything about it. I noted in the previous planning board when Councilwoman McLean was serving on the planning board, when someone came through and wanted a rezoning request, she asked the question, have you notified the adjoining property owner? And the person came forward and said, yes, ma'am, we have 5 letters signed by these people saying this is all right with them. Well, we didn't have that opportunity. We had no notice. And then in January, when it was on the town council meeting, there was no notice given to us then that this was coming up, that affecting our properties. And it was on the agenda, and if you look at the video of it, it went through so fast that if you blinked, you wouldn't have seen it. There was no discussion at all. And then when we got the notice a few days before the meeting last month, 3 of us came up here. We didn't know each other. We came up here innocently and honestly saying, we don't think this is a good idea, and this is why. The other 2 fellows just said, it's been such short notice, could we have a little time to see if we might gin up some opposition in the community or hire a lawyer or whatever? And the lawyer said, well, we've met all the minimum requirements, so you don't have to do that. So they didn't give them any time. They just went ahead and rezoned it, and the whole discussion was about whether or not there would be a land swap of 4 lots for 2, and how this might increase the value of what the town was getting by $100,000. People kept saying, we're going to get $100,000. Someone who was here with me said, gosh, I hope they're not trying to bribe the town council with $100,000. They're just trying, but basically, this due diligence wasn't done. Those lots are not worth what they said they were worth. The fellow bought them for $75,000 a piece a few years ago, and he put them on the market to sell, and not a single one of them is sold. And he took them off the market last year. So it'd be a bad deal no matter how you did it. But I think it was unnecessary, because there's already more land zoned for medical up there than you could possibly use. On the 3 lots next to the 2 lots that are in question, there are 2 other lots right next to it. One of them is not vacant, the other one's the cardiac arrest or the cardiac clinic, which is now leaving, just like the Centera's leaving too. They're leaving because, as Centera said, the other fellow happened to be working for Centera, they left because they weren't making money. Because down the street, there was another urgent care thing in the marketplace, less than half a mile away. So you had 2 urgent care centers competing with each other within half a mile. So now you're only gonna have one that's gonna be smaller than the one that was in Centera. And it's not going to increase the availability of health care in the community. There are gonna be less doctors, less nurses, less capability. So I would hope that you would think about this. First of all, Mike Dunn, who's building the house across the street there, has got a big investment. He's a young contractor with small children, and he's building a house that's for sale for $600,000. He didn't know this was gonna happen until 4 days before, but he's gonna lose a lot of money. The other couple had built their retirement home right across the street, and they didn't know about it until a few days before. So I think it was not properly done. We didn't get the notice that we should have gotten. Maybe it met the minimum legal requirements, as the lawyer said for the last meeting, but I don't think it met the requirements of good government. I mean, public office is also a public trust, and the people need to have confidence in their government. They need to know that they're going to be treated fairly and openly, and that their property is not going to be devalued without notice and for no reason at all. The land use plan is supposed to be the guideline. Now, they said it's not legally required, but the town said that they're going to follow the land use plan. They just threw it aside for no reason. So I'm here tonight to tell you, I hope you'll reconsider this. I hope you'll consider what you've done here, and I hope you'll consider that the due diligence wasn't done, that it wasn't fair to Mike Dunn or to Tom DeLucia or to me, and that this is not the way that you improve your service to the community. People need to have confidence in what you do, that it's going to be open, it's going to be fair, people are going to get proper notice, and that you don't take away the value of somebody's property for no good reason. So that's why I'm here, and I'll probably have some other things to say later on, but I know one of the things I'm concerned about is the traffic. I know, Mr. Mayor, you've been very concerned about the congestion at that intersection. Well, since you asked for that $25,000 from the tourist board, now you have 2 new cuts, and if you approve this, you're going to get another cut right around the curve, right into 158, at the busiest intersection in the Outer Banks. The traffic jams are going to be enormous. This is really not a good idea. So I think that maybe you should reconsider it, and I hope you will, and I hope that you'll give my neighbors and me proper consideration of what you're doing. I mean, now that I was told a couple of days ago, although you had put this on the agenda for this meeting, now it's been removed from the agenda, so that the land swap, which was supposed to be the basic reason why you did this, is now pushed back to maybe June, I'm told today, because they have to do something at the planning board on the 15th, and then there has to be something done on the 9th of April, and then if that's done properly, then there'll be something on May the 7th, and it might be pushed until June. So why couldn't you give Mike Dunn and Tom DeLucia a little more time? I mean, it's almost like a bait and switch thing. You know, now the bait's gone back to the planning board. But the fish has already been landed because they already got the lots zoned the way you want them, the way whoever the applicant is wanted them zoned. So I don't think it's fair. I think you ought to give it some thought, and I hope that you'll reconsider what I think is not good policy or good government or good practice for the town of Kitty Hawk and for the government of Kitty Hawk. Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
No.
Anyone else want to speak? We have 2 public comments. This is the first. There'll be one at the end of the meeting. Anyone? Let the record show no one else came forward. Before we proceed any further into the meeting, I'm going to have some comments, so it's fresh on everybody's mind. These are comments regarding the medical rezoning, possible town land swap, questions over the rezoning of town-owned property from residential to medical or governmental, and a possible exchange of town-owned property, 2 lots for 4 lots, resulting from that rezoning has raised a question of transparency and ethical actions. Since taking a seat on this council in 2005, ensuring transparency of all council and staff actions has been at the forefront of how we have attempted to conduct government business in Kitty Hawk. Because questions have been raised, I will take this opportunity to put before you facts as understood from the time the rezoning and potential land swap came to my attention. Soon after the Centero Medical Center closure was announced, an inquiry for possible swap of 2 town-owned lots for 4 privately owned lots was received by staff and relayed to me. The proposed reason was to facilitate adding a medical complex adjacent to existing medically zoned land. Rezoning of town-owned property would be required. My instruction to staff was to proceed under statute for notice and public hearings as appropriate for all conditions to be considered. At the February council meeting, town-owned property was zoned for possible medical or governmental purpose. Because governmental use was the original purpose for purchase of the property, rezoning should have occurred more than a decade ago. That said, the property is now correctly zoned and will not be returned to residential. As of this council meeting, a land swap has not occurred, but is expected to be part of the May 2018 agenda for discussion or action. Now, to discuss issues brought forth during the rezoning hearing. 1, adjacent property owners have expressed concern regarding inadequate public rezoning notice, suggesting that mailed notice to adjacent property owners should have been sent prior to the planning board review of the matter. Several years ago, council initiated adjacent property owner mailed notifications for issues that come before the council. Mailing notice ahead of planning board review was rejected because that is an advisory board only required to post notice of meetings. They do take the extra step to allow public comment. Recognizing that many adjacent property owners do not reside locally, I have instructed staff to commence mailing notice for appropriate issues ahead of planning board review. All that said, in North Carolina statute requires mailing to be to all adjacent property owners not less than 10 days nor more than 25 days prior to a zoning change. 2, concern was expressed that additional medical land construction was not needed in Kitty Hawk, considering the existing regional building and facilities located in the Marketplace Mall. Pasquotank County owns the regional center. I have spoken directly with the interim Pasquotank County manager and can report that they do not wish to continue any kind of service associated with the property. They desire to sell to the highest bidder for purpose yet to be determined. 3, is there a need for medical facilities on this end of Dare County? The answer is yes. When Centera pushed existing doctors and facilities south into Nags Head, it left a gap filled by Vidant at the Southern Shores Mall. Vidant has indicated a desire to become independent of the mall, and loss of that service, for whatever reason, reduces medical care access not likely to return in the old regional center. Retaining medical service in Kitty Hawk has a positive effect on a large segment of our population. 4, did land values impact the decision to rezone? Will it be part of the consideration for swapping land? The answer for me is no, nor do I think members of council. There is no intent to sell the property currently owned, and that intent would carry through to any other property owned. The property originally purchased for a second fire station was originally purchased for its second fire station. While there is no immediate need nor future planning to build another station in Kitty Hawk, state fire inspection results continue to insist that a second station is needed. A future council may need the property to meet a mandated requirement. Exchange of property will be based upon ability to provide town service, not monetary value. However, state statute requires assessed values be published, I assume, to ensure the taxpayer is not being cheated for benefit of private enterprise. 5, on a final note, it has been stated to me that the applicant for land swap is a well-connected, high-power individual that will run over anyone that gets in his way. I state here and now that no one will ever steamroll over this council person in the conduct of trying to do what is best for the community. My attachment to Kitty Hawk since 1942 makes council representation a civic duty second to no purpose other than the welfare of this community. This subject is over for council until the May meeting. Now we'll move on.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. There were no items removed, so now we have public hearings. All right. I want to take these individually, so we'll go in and out of public hearing for that purpose. Casey, do any of these require people to be sworn in?
A, for sure. I
A
was
requires
talking with
swearing in.
the subdivision variance. coming
I'm sorry?
up. The subdivision variance that we're about to hear. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, okay. All right, so I move to go into public hearing. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are in public hearing. Before you get started, Rob, let me explain to the folks that the people or the kind of thing that we'll deal with that requires you to be sworn in is by state statute. It's not meant to intimidate you. It's, I guess, meant to keep you honest. I don't care one way or the other. What we do want to do is hear from you if you want to speak. So please don't be intimidated by being sworn in, all right? That's all I can say about it. Rob, you're up.
So this application, as Casey mentioned, is for a subdivision variance. The lots subject to this subdivision variance consist of 6 lots, each measuring 100 feet by approximately 150, each with 100-foot road frontage. 3 of the lots front on Lindbergh Avenue, and the other 3 front on North Grove on 158. The applicant has requested a variance from section 38-105B4, minimum lot width. The ordinance requires a minimum lot width of 75 feet measured at the front setback and no less than 50 feet of road frontage. This proposed variance would allow the proposed lots, or the reconfigured lots, to have 50 foot of road frontage with a total width of 50 feet rather than the required 75 at the building setback. The applicants also requested a variance from 38-105B1, which establishes that the minimum lot size of the zoning district be met. The lots in questions are located in the BC1 General Beach Commercial District. The minimum lot size in the district is 15,000 square feet. The proposed variance is not creating any new lots, but it would be reconfiguring the existing 6 into dimensions of 50 by 299.36, totaling to 14,968 square feet. The reconfigured lots would also have a double frontage on 158 and Lindbergh Avenue. And then just some background for the neighborhood. The existing residential lots to the east on Lindbergh are all 50 feet in width, while the residential lots to the south are 100 feet in width. The subject properties as well as the surrounding properties are zoned as BC1. which allows single-family residences as an administrative conditional use. The applicant does intend to have the lots available for 6 single-family residences, all fronting on to Lindbergh Avenue. Section 38-105C of the subdivision ordinance states that double frontage lots should be avoided, but they're not prohibited. It could be argued that with this proposal, it would be in the town's best interest to allow the subdivision variance in order to reduce potential curb cuts on North Croatan Highway. As currently configured, there could be a potential of 3 new curb cuts, either for residences or commercial uses on 158, all within 300 feet of each other. And the lots that we're talking about are just south of Town Bank, right by Eckner. And that's part of what spurred the request from the applicant is they wanted to do 6 single-family homes using the 6 existing lots, but they want them to all access Lindbergh rather than have 3 new driveways onto 158. So it was a staff recommendation of the planning board that in order to ensure that the lots will front on Lindbergh, that we require through recordation that the lots be accessed via Lindbergh Avenue. And at the planning board meeting, the applicant had offered putting an easement along the 158 side that would prevent any future curb cuts and would allow the town to enforce it if anybody tried to construct a curb cut there. Again, like the last subdivision variance we heard, if it's approved tonight, this is not approving this configuration that you're seeing. This is just putting in place the mechanism to allow staff to approve the subdivision once they bring the plat back to me. At its January 25th, 2018 meeting, the planning board unanimously recommended approval of the proposed subdivision variance with that condition that I stated that required through recordation that they be accessed via Lindbergh. That's all I've got for you. I don't know if the applicant wanted to speak or just answer questions.
I have a question, then I'll pass it. The 5-foot, what was it, the easement that you're willing to put up, if you didn't do the easement, would the lot square footage meet town requirements currently?
No, the easement is included in the lot area. That's just basically a strip to prohibit access to the beach.
Well, I understand that.
Yeah.
I guess where I'm going with this is the square footage is a little bit under the 15,000.
Correct.
Okay. If the easement was not in there, would it be the 15,000?
Well, the easement area is in the lot area right now, so.
All right,
yeah,
so,
adding that
so we're going to be a
back
little bit under the 15,000.
We're already under on each lot, so these will, no.
Okay.
It won't make a difference.
All right, that was my question. Counsel, you have any questions?
I have a question. With the total area of the 2 parcels combined, it comes up short to being a 15,000 square foot lot for each property, once you divide it by 6.
That's correct.
So you're going to short all 6 properties, and we would, in effect, then have 6 non-conforming lots in a subdivision? Or would you be making 5 15,000 square foot lots and only 1 that was non-conforming?
The way it is right now, we have 3 that are currently conforming at 15,000 square feet. We have 3 lots on Lindbergh, I believe, that are not quite at 15,000 square feet.
So it would be 3 and 2.
Right, so what we did is we just said, okay, let's make them all 50 foot wide, because that's a good convenient. That matches the lots across the street, and it creates a nice building.
Again, so you're creating 2 non-conforming lots with the 50-foot frontage, and
Yeah.
3 conforming lots also with 50-foot.
Right, we're taking
Frontage.
3 conforming and 3 conforming, 3 non-conforming, and basically creating 6 lots that are non-conforming with
Okay.
respect to.
2 of them,
to
okay,
square
never mind,
footage,
okay,
yes.
all right.
There'd be 6 lots that would be
6 lots, not
non-conforming.
5. I don't know why I had 5 in my head, that we were working with 5
Okay.
lots.
And I will add that it's, it might be a little hard to make out on the second page of the handout. On Dare County's GIS website, they have these listed as, or has it shown as 2 parcels, but we found that they do that from time to time where if it's same ownership for multiple lots, they'll block them all together. It looks like one. So it currently is 6 lots there. So it wouldn't be creating any new lots with this. It's just reconfiguring what's there.
They're caught up in the fact that the rule changed since the beach was first platted off. And we would be allowing them to have a little bit less square footage, but we'd also be not having curb cuts onto 158. They also are between 2 commercial lots,
Right.
all 6 of them, which is kind of an odd thing.
And that whole area around that intersection is all zoned DC1. So even the single-family homes that are across Lindbergh, those are all commercially zoned too. I know the homes were there before the zoning was, but
Yeah, most of that happened in 1986. I can't fix
I
that.
have one more question for Rob.
Go ahead.
What's the impact of a lot being a non-conforming lot to someone purchasing a piece of property?
impact to
I mean, can they build on it if it's,
oh, yeah.
we have a 15,000 square foot
Yeah.
minimum building?
Yeah, I mean, as
So
you're-
would they be allowed to build on it?
Yes, you know, many of the lots that we have between the highways are not conforming both in width and lot size, and we've got new homes going on, you know, pretty constantly, as long as they can meet the setback requirements, lot coverage and septic, there's nothing that can keep them from being able to build.
Okay, any other questions here before I call for
No more
anybody who
questions.
has comment?
No, sir.
All right. Lynn's, anybody signed up? Okay, anybody out there want to talk to this particular? No? All right, let the record show no one showed up. Do you have any other questions? If you have to ask them now, because
I'm done.
once we come out of hearing, it's between us. All right, a motion to go back into regular session?
So moved.
Second?
Did you get a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, council, what do you want to do?
Need to make a motion.
Do it?
I move to grant approval of the proposed subdivision variance to allow lots 33, 34, 35, 42, 43, and 44 of Kitty Hawk Beach Revised Section A, Block 36, to be reconfigured as shown on the associated plat. Town council has found that it is the best interest of the town to allow the reconfiguration with the condition that through recordation, access to the subject parcels will be provided via Lindbergh Avenue, as this will reduce potential curb cuts on North Croatan Highway, reducing risk of traffic incidents.
Does it have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Hearing no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. So you're going to have houses between what used to be a bank
Yep.
and a real estate office. I guess they can rent them out. Next item up is text amendment for pool equipment, and that requires a public hearing, so I motion we go into public hearing. Does it have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right, we're in public hearing.
So this proposed text amendment was a staff-initiated one just based on some issues that seem to occur at least once every couple of months. Currently, our zoning ordinance allows HVAC units and their associated stands to encroach into the side yard setbacks by up to 5 feet. Our pool, we allow the pools, aprons, and decking no greater than 30 inches to encroach as close as 5 feet to the side and rear property lines, but all pool equipment has to meet all required setbacks. So the one I most recently ran into, I don't know how well it shows up on here. So the red line that I drew in on the picture on the left is where the setback line falls on this particular property. And the HVAC stand is sitting within the setback, but that's allowed by our ordinance. And then they attached the pool pump on the same stand to the back of it, which doesn't encroach any further into the setback. But by our ordinance, it's a violation at this point. So they'd have to correct that and, relocate the pump, possibly do a new stand, creating new lot coverage issues. This one in particular, I don't think is right at 30%, so it's not gonna create a lot coverage issue, but there could be some other situations where it would. So basically, it was just an attempt to try to clean this up a little bit. Councilman Bateman had come to me, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and asked, what are we gonna do in the situations where, someone gets it approved, gets their CO and goes and closed it, because the way it's written currently, it would only allow uncovered pool equipment and on an unenclosed stand to sit within the setback. If somebody wanted to, build a little roof structure or something to protect it from the elements, it would still have to meet setbacks. I was thinking that we could change the proposed language to state the uncovered pool equipment on an approved unenclosed HVAC stand. That way we're limiting it to just this type scenario rather than someone placing the stand and building a little house around it after they get their CO. That's not part of the original proposal and wasn't in the planning board's recommendation, but if that's something that you think might address that concern, I don't see where that would be an issue. Again, the way it's written now is just for unenclosed and open stands that the equipment would be on. And enforcement, if somebody were to go out and enclose it, would be just as any other zoning ordinance violation. Once we became aware of it, send a letter to the property owner, tell them they have X amount of days to correct it. And usually that's enough to get the correction done, but at least since I've been here, it's always been enough to get it done. That's really it for this one. I guess it's a fairly basic, I hope.
Okay. Wouldn't take much to build a box around that. Becomes an enforcement problem. Folks, you got any questions for Rob?
I don't see, if I was a neighbor, I would much rather look at that and it being closed than not being closed. The average guy's going to enclose it anyway, so why don't we just allow them to enclose it?
That's a different, I think that's changed enough, you might have to come back to it.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
look at
That one, I'm thinking right, that one
Yeah,
may be
okay.
maybe
We have to
substantial
change.
enough.
I mean, that's not what was brought to us. That would need to go back.
just don't, for a practical reason, the average guy, anybody's going to enclose the thing. You got a pool pump out there and looks and so you're going to enclose it.
Okay, well, actually, that's more discussion among us once we get into regular session. Right now, we're in a public hearing. All right, anybody else? Rob, before I call for people? No?
I got just one. Rob, so what we're saying is I could run, right now as it is, this pump could go all the way to 5 feet?
Currently, no. The pool pump has to meet all setback requirements. So on the sides, at a minimum, it would be 10 feet and 25 front and rear. The HVAC stand and the HVAC units are allowed to encroach the 5 feet.
But what we're proposing is that we're going to allow this to encroach 5 feet?
Right.
No more than 5 feet,
Right.
correct?
Correct.
I do have a question. So if I had this motor sitting outside of my house and the rain was hitting it and the wind was blowing seeds into it and other sundry things, and I decided I wanted to just put something on top of it to protect it, Would that be considered an enclosure? Even if it's not structural, even if it's just something that looks like a big old rock sitting there? Is that still considered structural, or is that a cover?
That wasn't the intent, because I know, people do get plastic covers to set over top of them. I've seen buckets and the plastic rocks and everything. The way this was intended to come across was, building like actual walled structure with a roof,
But you wouldn't consider it a plastic bucket or an
Right.
artificial rock
right.
a structure, you would consider that just a cover?
I think perhaps a good measuring stick would be something, if you're building something that essentially becomes part of the land, if it becomes affixed to it, much like that stand right there that the HVACs are sitting on. Those pylons are driven into the ground, it's an affixed thing. It's now considered part of the real estate, if you will, part of the
If
dirt.
it's not nailed or screwed on?
That's a decent measuring stick for our purposes
All right, now I
today.
understand. All right, fine.
Anybody else? All right, anybody signed up? Anybody want to speak?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
My name is Brian Morgan. I was actually coming here to speak a little bit later, but one thing pops into my head. We're considering that pool pump to be part of the utility package that can encroach to 5 feet. Are we all in agreement on that? So why aren't we simply calling the pool pump a utility? Whether you cover it or not, as long as it doesn't go to be part of the 5 feet. The reason I'm asking this is one of the reasons I was coming here to thank Rob and a couple of the other folks, has to do with a matter of my getting some property changes on my lot. And I'm discovering I can milk an extra 5 feet for a utility out here now. So if I call pool pump part of the utility package, why are we even worried about covering it or not? Because if I'm allowed to do that, I'm definitely gonna do it. I'm gonna cover that sucker up in a heartbeat. It's part of the utilities.
All right,
That's my comment.
thank you. Good to hear. All right, anyone else? All right, let the record show no one else came forward. Motion to go back into regular session?
So moved.
All right, have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Council?
I just think it makes good common sense. You've got a stand with HVAC units compliant, when you put the pool pump, it's not compliant. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Do what we need to do, make them both compliant.
And allow them to be covered. The HA units, you take the cover off and you got nuts and bolts of it there, you put the cover back on. It's the same thing with the pool, like the gentleman said, a utility. If you're, what I don't want to do is, in essence, creating someone to break the law, because everybody's going to cover it.
That's
Anybody-
exactly right.
Okay, so, I mean, just let them do what they want to do and
Well,
cover
we,
it up.
I will remind you that HIVAC, of course, you're not going to cover for obvious reasons. That's got to stay
Right.
open. But we also were very careful not to allow stairs that encroach into the 5 foot to be covered. Is that not correct? All right. So now you're carving out yet another exemption to the exemptions. Is that wise to keep doing that? So, I don't know. You tell me what you want to do. I can tell you that I think it's an enforcement problem, that it'll be covered. If it goes the way it's been brought to us, if you want to change the wording, then it needs to go back because the wording changed. Correct me if I'm wrong, Casey.
I'm listening.
It's substantial, and we can't deal with what we've been given.
That would be accurate. If we're gonna go so far as to, as you said, exempt the exemption or preempt the exemption, then
Right.
yes, we'd need to take it back for further consideration.
Exactly. So, those are the two options. You can deny, approve, or send it back for the wording that you prefer. Which do you want to do?
I'd prefer to send it back, let it get the wording we need, and bring it back for further discussion.
All right, is that a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right. Does that motion have a second?
And why are we sending it back? What are we discussing? Why?
For them
so-
to be able to have a cover on it
I mean,
legally.
a structural cover, not just a aesthetic kind of coverage is.
Covered is covered.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it doesn't matter whether it's
So-
covered by
So
plastic
we're going to
housing.
send this to the planning board to see whether they think that we should move forward and putting a cover on this. And then we'll look at it.
To reword it.
Reword it.
To reword it in such a fashion that covers are allowed, and then the next thing that goes from that, yes.
And if we classified, Casey, if we
Yes.
classified, would this be classified as a utility?
That was a good question when you raised that. I myself was sitting there pondering as to whether or not it would fall into our
That way it would
definition.
take Gary's play out of, about the stairs completely out of it.
Right, right. Well, and I'm also sitting here thinking, well, if we did a,
You always mess this thing up.
approval here, I mean, if we approve this because it's a good idea, because there's common sense, it can be amended again if necessary as well. So this, again, another staff amendment could come forward asking for the enclosure language. It could be done that way if there's a pressing concern right now, because it makes good sense to go ahead, approve this as written, and just bring an entirely new amendment through the chain.
I like that.
You could do it that way.
Whatever the.
But I'm with you on the enforcement thing as well, Councilman Bailey.
All right.
Want me to withdraw my motion and then do it the way Casey said?
Well, it doesn't have a second yet.
Okay.
Was anybody going to second Irvin's motion? Which was to send it back, basically, to the planning board for rewording. If you weren't, then the motion will fail.
Well, I mean, if it's going to help Rob to not jump on whoever this is, then I don't have a problem with passing this, so this guy gets off the hook, and then we can move on. But if there's no rush, and, I mean, we're not going to go running around making them pull this out, I don't see why we don't just let the planning board deal with this and bring it back with us, so, but,
So you just seconded his motion.
and I'll second Irvin's motion.
Okay. Now we have proper motion with second. All right. Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
No. So there's 2 noes. All right.
Easy to do what he was talking.
You should have said that then. Said it.
All right. A pool pump. Who would have known? Next, we have a text amendment for multifamily dwellings. Wait a minute, we're not in public hearing yet. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I motion we go into public hearing.
Moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Now, you can go for it.
All right, the applicant has proposed the text amendment would allow multifamily dwellings as a conditional use in the BC1 General Beach Commercial District. The specific requirements that are proposed be a maximum allowable lot coverage by principal use and all accessory structures is 60%. The minimum front yard setback is 15 feet. The minimum side yard setback is 10 feet. An additional 5-foot side yard adjacent to the street is required for a corner lot. The minimum required, or the minimum rear yard setback is 20 feet. Maximum permitted density shall be 10 residential dwelling units per acre, and that a type A vegetative buffer per section 42-654 shall be required between any multifamily dwelling and abutting residential zones or uses. So currently in the BC1 district, the zoning ordinance permits apartments on the second story of compatible commercial uses, provided that the applicant, or the applicable state building and fire codes are met, and that 1 parking space per bedroom be reserved for the occupants of the apartment, in addition to any other parking spaces that may be required. There's no regulation on maximum density on apartments over permitted ground floor commercial uses, not mentioned in the BC1 language. The proposal of the 60% lot coverage and the setbacks of a 15-foot in the front and 10 feet in the sides and 20 feet for the rear yard are consistent with the dimensional requirements for the BC1 zoning district. In the districts that multifamily dwellings are currently permitted, which is the BR2, BR3, BR3, The setbacks are 25 foot for the front and rear, and we have a sliding scale of anywhere from 10 to 25 feet for the side yards, depending on the square footage of the dwelling. Although the language is silent on how the side yard setbacks are actually calculated when you're looking at multiple dwellings on the lot. In the BR2, BR3, and VR3, the maximum lot coverage permitted is 30%. So the applicants requested the maximum density of 10 units per acre. Currently in our residential districts, even those that do allow the multifamily dwellings, it's currently at 4 dwellings per acre. But an argument could be made that a commercial zoning district is by its nature more intensely developed than any of the residential districts in town, possibly providing justification for the higher density limit, higher lot coverage maximum, and the smaller front and rear yard setbacks than if the multifamily dwelling were constructed within one of the residential districts. And again, in an attempt to mitigate any potential visual impacts of a multifamily dwelling being permitted adjacent to a residential zone or a single-family dwelling use, the planning board recommended the required vegetative buffer be placed between the uses. And I will point out that with this text amendment, if approved, it would allow like a standalone multifamily dwelling, just one building. You wouldn't allow for like an apartment complex, like we have kind of adjacent to town hall. Let's see, and I've provided in the staff report a list of what some of the other towns do with regards to multifamily dwellings in their commercial districts. Duck does not allow it. In Southern Shores, multifamily dwellings are permitted in the general commercial district according to the dimensional requirements of their multifamily residential district. They do allow for an extra 10% lot coverage for the multifamily dwellings in a commercial district. In Kill Devil Hills, multifamily dwellings of 3 or more units per dwelling are permitted in the commercial district at a density of 18 dwelling units per acre. The high-density residential district setbacks are applied. In Nags Head, multifamily dwellings are permitted as a conditional use, provided a number of conditions are met. Those conditions are attached to the staff report. And in Manio, the multifamily dwellings are permitted at a density of 6 dwellings per buildable acre. It's January 25th, 2018 meeting. The planning board unanimously recommended approval of the requested text amendment to allow multifamily dwellings in the BC1 district as a conditional use with the conditions listed in the staff report. That the applicant, his representation is here.
Okay, council, you have any questions, Rob? This particular one is up by Seascape that you're looking at as an immediate,
I don't know if that would be possible.
huh?
I don't know if that will be possible due to some other covenants on those properties. However, this subject has come up to me multiple times from other developers saying, well, why can't we just build an apartment complex? Why do we have to put commercial underneath it if it's in the BC zone? And while Rob didn't get into it, I know you all have been watching some of you probably participated in some of the discussions about the need for housing. I'll tell you that setting the units per acre lower creates larger units. Instead of having 2 bedrooms, you have a 3-bedroom unit. And what we are seeing and hearing is that there is a real need for 2-bedroom units because of young families that don't need 3 bedrooms, don't need a house. 2 people want to rent a unit together, 2 policemen or firemen. We've seen that and we've heard that there's a need for it. And we don't, as a town, have any ordinance in place that would allow that, unless you want to put retail on the first floor. You know, and early on, I joked with Rob, I said, well, could I just put a 500 square foot convenience store and then parking next to it and build 3 stories above it? And the answer is probably yes, but I don't think that's how the ordinance was structured and was intended to be interpreted. So, you know, this is not site-specific. Matter of fact, it may not work on the site that we were hoping to put it on. However, I still think it's probably a good idea for us to discuss this and to see how we may be able to accommodate some of the needs that we have in the community. And in the commercial zone, we didn't want to recreate the wheel as far as the setbacks. I mean, in the commercial zone, you can do 60% lot coverage, you've got setbacks that are a little bit looser. And as Rob said, it is a higher intensity type of zone for us, so we should be able to do a little bit higher intensity apartments, if you will.
Okay.
There's two other things I wanted to note too. If approved, it would be as conditional use permit, so any potential developments that would come in the future would all be reviewed on a case-by-case basis, all by the planning board and council as well. And I do want to point out too, I have been for the past probably 4 or 5 months attending meetings for the housing committee. I believe we had a representative come speak at a couple of council meetings ago. And it's made up of town, county officials, local builders, the Chamber of Commerce. And one of the things that has been noted there is the need for workforce housing and multifamily dwellings. And one of the contractors did mention that they don't even look in Kitty Hawk because their current density requirement of 4 dwellings per acre is not viable for multifamily dwellings. So they tend to look at the other towns when they've got a prospect for that.
And I'll tell you truthfully, on that, if we were looking at that property, which we probably won't be at now, then we buy an acre and a half of property. Most of our property is probably not that big, or some of them maybe would be relevant. You're really not going to be able to achieve much more than about 10 to 12 units per acre when you have a lot of coverage, stormwater, on-site septic system. So, and you have a maximum building size that's already in the ordinance, that can't be bigger than 30. Multifamilies do require sprinkler systems now. So there's a lot of checks and balances in place. I think the 10 is probably not a bad number if we want to consider. I'm sure there's some development with like 12, but I think 10 works for land area use.
Okay. Kitty Hawk's a little bit unique in that we have VCs that used to be motels and stuff like that, and then they're turned into residential. Do we have a lot of places, you didn't bring a zoning map, I'm sure. Do we have a lot of places where that could be reversed and suddenly we are inundated with multifamily dwellings? I mean, we are unique in that.
Right.
It was zoned one way and then it got changed to different things. Residential kind of just fell in there.
I wouldn't imagine that really being much of a possibility. One, the amount of vacant BC1 land, there's not a whole lot that are of a lot size that would support something like that. Two, again, if it were to be a conditional use permit, the council would be reviewing each one on a case-by-case basis. So if there's the concern that they're starting to get overrun or a particular lot, it just doesn't work there. It wouldn't have, just approving the language doesn't mean we have to approve every multifamily dwelling that might come before us. So I would think the risk of, getting overrun by apartment buildings up and down 158, I don't think that would be too big of a concern with it.
Council, anything of these two before I call for?
Going back to what you just said, Mr. DeLucia, this is probably will not happen in Seascape because of the number of units that can be placed there. Is that correct?
No, because the lots we were looking at have some restrictive covenants on them.
Okay. Okay.
However, maybe it could, because covenants can be changed, but if council doesn't put the language in place, then there's no reason to go talk to the 7 other, or I think it's 5, there's 8 lots, so they own 3 of them, so there's 5 other property owners that would have to be involved. I don't know if it could happen or not, but it certainly won't happen if council doesn't have it.
Okay, let me see if anybody out there wants to say anything. Anybody? Nobody? Anybody got any more questions of these two? Okay. Casey, one last point. Yeah, a lot of the things can be changed because of conditional use, but council has to have a reason, a good reason, to reject a conditional use.
Got to put a foundation forward.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to remind all of us of that.
Basis.
I mean, it's just not willy-nilly. You have to have a foundation for it. All right. No one wants to speak. Let the record show no one came forward on this one. Motion to go back into regular session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We're back in regular session. Council, what do you want to do? Any discussion? You want to think over it? You can table it for a month. Think about it if that's what you want to do.
I'll just make the comment that, you know, we do need affordable housing, not affordable housing, but housing that our people can, that young families starting off can afford. And we haven't got it now. There's none throughout Dare County. And as an employer, we face it every day, and the young people are facing the fact that they can't afford $1,700, $1,500 a month rent. It's ridiculous. As he said, 3 houses, 3 bedrooms. You don't need 3 bedrooms. You only got you and a baby and a husband or something, you know, so. I'll make a motion. I move to adopt the proposed text amendment to adding subsection 42-250, parentheses, C, 35, multifamily dwelling, allowing multifamily dwellings as a conditional use in the general beach commercial BC1 district. Town council finds that the proposed text amendment is consistent with adopted Campbell land use plan and finds these amendments to be in the public interest.
Second.
All right. We have a motion, a second. Discussion. Any discussion?
So what we're saying basically is if somebody chooses to come in and buy one of these, say a rundown motel here on the Outer Banks, in Kitty Hawk, and there is a couple, and we've had people in here wanting to reconfigure. So they can basically, what we're talking about is just about any lot that has a big motel that's wanting to go for sale, we're opening this up for multi-family, right? In the commercial area, reducing our commercial properties, you know, even though, like I said, the houses that we were talking about earlier is on commercial, but, I mean, just for instance, the Bonanza Motel, that just comes to mind with me. Would that be a place that would probably fit, you know?
I believe that is zoned as BR1.
Is that BR? Okay.
And a lot of the older motels are like where the Buccaneer is, and I think the Saltair, the Saltair is BC1, but some of the other older ones are in the BH1, the Beach Hotel District, so this wouldn't apply to.
So this is very few places probably, but I'm just trying to get my head around how many.
That gives you a good visual. The majority of the land is along the bypass. There's a few areas where it pushes over to Beach Road.
Yes, I'm just trying to figure out where this would be, where they would be located and what property would be available for this.
Yeah, it's buried.
Almost there.
Thunderful.
Okay, so you can see, here's a BC1 pocket. And this is kind of along, here's Eckner. There's a small little portion.
That's more what I was referring to.
Right. And then the rest of it is, I think this is adjacent to one of the trailer parks, I believe, here. And then this stretch along the bypass.
What's the cross street in that little BC one, that one?
This one?
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Okay.
Jeff, the bottom line is.
They already have homes on it.
You're in a commercial, you can, like they said, they've already said, you could build a retail under it, have apartments over top. The only difference is now you have apartments up and down. You're still confined by 35 feet, you're still confined by setbacks. And while we do need, the whole county needs affordable housing or workplace housing, whatever we do here doesn't mean that whoever owns that's going to
Sure.
not charge something that somebody can't afford anyway. So that's not, it's
And
not here nor there.
And it also,
We either accept this or we don't.
Sure.
One or the other.
and the land in those areas could also support 10-bedroom houses.
Yeah,
or something
well,
of that
some
nature.
places, yeah.
So we are going to have something there if someone wants it bad enough.
Correct.
I just wanted to see where they were, how many of them and how much area. I'm good.
Okay. Any others? All right, we have a motion basically to approve it, and we had a second, right? Yes. We had a second. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Now make them charge what people can afford.
Yeah, right, that's what's gonna hinder it.
All right, town manager, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Town Council members. Just a couple announcements here. Just as a reminder, the next Town Council meeting usually would be April 9th. We're rescheduling that to, would usually be April 2nd, the first Monday of the month. We're going to reschedule that till April 9th due to the Easter holiday. Also, during that April 9th Town Council meeting, we'll adjourn, or we'll recess, into our budget work session, which will be on the 23rd, so we won't adjourn that meeting. And then April 23rd at 9 a.m. is the budget work session for the Town Council. On April 9th as well, the chipping service will begin for the town. We do that twice a year, so if you put out your vegetative debris and things out by the curb, the company will come around and chip that for you and remove it and take it away from the curbside. One more thing is, I wanted to kind of demonstrate, now that we have our new monitors that we received with grant funding through the Current TV, through Gov Channel. I'd like to show you a video that we put together here for the town of Kitty Hawk, and we do these periodically. Melody Clopton works really hard at organizing these, but this is a video that we put, and it airs on the Current TV channel, and it's called through a program called Destination Dare, and this is about our debris removal project. So I'm going to have Melody, if you would, play that video for us and kind of demonstrates what these are.
The town of Kitty Hawk began removing vegetative debris from the network of canals and ditches within the town of Kitty Hawk. The project's scope consisted of removing vegetative debris caused by the recent hurricanes and tropical storms that may have blocked any ditches and canals within the town. This project's 100% funded by grant funds from the state of North Carolina as a result of the Hurricane Matthew and tropical storms Hermine and Julia. Once the town was notified that they had gotten the grant to do this particular project, we were able to identify some areas via maps and with local knowledge to identify the worst areas that needed to be done. This project does not include every ditch and canal in the town, but it is the ones we feel would be most beneficial. The town has identified 7 areas that will be cleaned at this particular time. That's the Gingut Canal, which is the larger canal in Kitty Hawk, and 6 other smaller ones that some of the old timers may know the names to, but most people do not. They consist of Newfoundland Gut, Duck Pond Ditch, Sandy Run Canal, among a few others. The importance of this is specifically so that within the village, when we have flooding and heavy rains, the water will have a place to go without being blocked up or dammed up at some point. On the ocean side, we can pump water back to the ocean, but in the village, this is the only way for the water to get out of town. Dredging and soil removal from the canal and ditch network is not permitted under this particular grant. The project is expected to take an estimated 60 to 90 days to complete, depending on the weather conditions for the contractor. For information, please contact the Public Works Department at 252-261-1367.
So that gives you a good idea. Of course, you all know about the project, but currently the contractors, I would estimate, a little more than 50% completed. We did receive some extra funding as well. So what we're going to do is complete those canals that were on the original bid and then kind of follow up on some phone calls we've received from some residents since we've had the contractors out in the town, and then see what we can do with the remainder of the funds. So we should be able to clear most of our ditches of any down debris that's been down in the canals, and they have been clearing off some from the sides as well. So we think they're doing a good job, and we expect that to last the next couple of months or so. With that, I believe that's all I have.
Okay, I noticed the ditch run by my property hadn't been done yet, but that's.
We get it. Yeah, we're here.
We'll keep you on your toes.
You're the last 50% coming.
Mine either.
Always the last one.
Probably not.
All right, Mr. Attorney.
Nothing for me, Mayor and Council.
All right. No alarms at home?
I was gonna say, between your ditch and my alarm, it's pretty clear we don't show favorable treatment in this.
It's not working well, is it? Town council. Craig, you want to start this one?
Yes, thank you. Compliments to all of the town staff during the last few days. We've had a little bit of wind blowing, and I know you've answered phone calls here at Town Hall, Police Department, Fire Department, Public Works have done a great job. Andy, I've had personal compliments on the large item pickup that occurred last week and on the great job done on the bike path. People, friends of mine use it all the time. They say it's just beautiful, very nice. That was a great video too. That's all I have.
I would just get as to what Craig just said, but I was going running, and one of those guys that were in those boats was in Duck Pond Ditch, which is between Poor Ridge and Herbert Perry, and he was up to here in mud. There's a lot of silt down there. I mean, it was a ton. And he had a pair of waders on, and he said, "I'm almost sinking down here." I said, "You are." It was a lot of silk.
That's right.
But they're doing a good job there.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Lynn?
Echoing the same thing everybody said, thank you to the staff and everybody that works for Kitty Hawk, and some of the ditches are looking good.
Haven't got to yours yet, right?
No, we're waiting.
What have we got?
They jumped mine and they jumped yours, but
Well, as soon as they find out somebody up here is connected, they just go to another ditch, I guess.
as long as they get it, that's what counts.
They
You got
started
my
on my
large item
ditch.
pickup, I'll say.
Mine looks perfect. Okay. Mine-
Well, they started on my ditch, but anyway, no, I'm just kidding. They have got my ditch, so. No, I just want to just thank Jeff Guard again for his service, you know. It's nice that we have employees that start and stay with us for as long as they do, and we're very lucky to have him on our police force.
Yes.
That's it.
I'm going to end the council discussion by simply stating that while we had some overwash, it was nothing compared to what it would have been without the beach nourishment. And I can tell you for a fact that the way it was before we nourished the beach, I would have had pumps standing by ready to pump 4 days before that storm hit, because we know from experience that's what would have happened. So the beach nourishment worked. Of course, the question everybody has is, will it continue to work and for how long? And that's a question we don't know until it happens and we find out. And now I'm going to admit to something that was foolish myself today. I went out this morning just ahead of high tide because I wanted to see the damage to the beach before it came to council. And I walked out there to look, see where it was at, and a wave hit me and knocked me on my keister. Wet me from head to toe. I had $1 million sand in my ears and my nose and my pocket, and I felt kind of foolish. So the power of the wave will get you.
We got that on video?
No, but I bet somebody would like for it. I was one wet puppy, and that ocean is cold, trust me on that.
At least you're on the beach and not on 12, though. You could have got knocked down on 12 back then.
And I was out beyond the sand fences, so there you go. All right. Next, we have last public comment. I figured you would.
Well, I figured, you know, I was doing so well in the popularity contest, I couldn't waste another opportunity. I just wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, after what you said, Mr. Mayor, my point was it not that somebody's done anything illegal. I was just saying it would have been nice to follow what I would call the McLean rule, where you ask people in advance, you know, before whether the neighbors have been notified, before the planning board makes a recommendation. And then when the planning board makes a recommendation, that at least in that month or so in between, that the people who are affected would be notified or consulted or asked what they think. I think that's just a common courtesy. I mean, people have been hurt. Mike Dunn's got a $600,000 house. He's a young contractor, it's one of his first projects, and he's hurt because he's got that thing on sale, and now he's facing, you know, a zoning change right in front of his house. And Tom DeLucia and his wife, who retired and built their retirement home over there, and we're now negotiating to try to put a swimming pool in there, have decided not to do that, and they're gonna move. The doctor who lives in the house that I own, after this happened, gave me notice. We were negotiating for him to buy the house. He's withdrawn the offer and now given notice that he wants to leave. So people have been hurt. There need to have been a reason for that. I saw no reason for this. There's plenty of property, not just up where the center is, but also the next 2 lots above those 3 lots that have already been zoned. One's vacant, it's zoned properly. People in the cardiac thing have left. So there's plenty of room to do whatever it was they were gonna do. So I would have hoped that maybe there would have been a better reason to do this, and that the people might have been given an opportunity to make their case and to be heard. I just think it's a common courtesy, and it's a good way for the government to perform. So I just want to register my complaint and hope you'll give that some consideration. I also want to say that I was told this afternoon that this Hutter Lane thing is going to go to the planning board, and you announced there's something about May for a conditional use permit. And my question is, can an applicant ask for a conditional use permit on property he doesn't own? Because the swap hadn't taken place yet. So does somebody go in and ask for a conditional use permit on some property that hadn't been swapped yet or hadn't owned? There's no plan yet there. So I'm just curious as to how this works. I mean, can you really ask for a conditional use permit on somebody else's property? So that's just a question that I just came up this afternoon, and so I wanted to ask it. But thank you for your courtesy, and thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Though I live around the corner, I'm not going to speak to that issue on that. We bought our house here in 2000. The house was built in the early 80s. There were some interesting things that were going on in the early 80s. I came here to thank the people. I appreciate Rob's help. I appreciate David's help and Phyllis's help. I came to them with some questions. They did not have the documentation. They were very patient. They gave me the time I needed to get the information I needed. They helped me find it, and then they helped me negotiate what I needed to do to get it through. I understand I'm one of the first people in Kitty Hawk that's going to take a Conex container and turn it into a shed on the property in Kitty Hawk. I don't know why that's the big to do, but I can guarantee you it's not going to wind up looking like a Conex container when I'm done with it. But the point being is everybody's been very gracious. They've given me the time. We've been here since 2000. I don't have any horror stories. It's never a happy thing when you have to mitigate business with property, and you're going to have some winners and some losers, but frankly, we've been very grateful for all the help that the people of Kitty Hawk have given us. And I just wanted to let you guys know that at least those folks have done right by us, and, you know, it's all well and fine for you to sit there and congratulate yourselves, but, you know, you have helped me. You gave me the time I needed, and I just wanted to say thank you as opposed to griping at you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's what we ask council, or staff to do, and they do it very well. All right, anyone else? All right, I'm going to close public comment. No one else came forward. And before I ask for an adjournment, I'm going to ask Casey to answer the question.
The answer, Mr. Oliver, is yes. Actually, it occurs very often in due diligence periods when it comes down to, say, commercial developments. People don't want to go and pay the high premium, so they run things through the appropriate avenues, such as town council meetings, to get those type approvals before they pull the trigger on, say, building a hotel or something of that nature. Because if the hotel developer can't come in and do what he's trying to do, he doesn't want to be stuck with the property. So to answer your question, you can apply for a CUP or conditional use permit without owning the property, yes.
And I will add, we have done that more than once.
Absolutely.
Yes,
And
we
I
have.
represent KDH as well, and it occurs there all the time, so just.
All day long.
Okay, all right. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, please.
Do I hear a second? Well, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.